It made me think of Alzheimer's and dementia, weirdly, because I don't really know a huge amount about Alzheimer's and dementia, but I know that something clearly goes wrong in the body that produces these plaques.
Mm-hmm.
And you often hear that there's lots of things we consume or do that increase our probability of getting Alzheimer's and dementia.
Yeah.
So is that at all linked to the same sort of like energy distraction?
Yes. It's been long believed that the plaque, right, that you've heard about, amyloid plaques and tau tangles, and there's kind of this idea that the brain accumulates proteins, and it's those proteins that cause Alzheimer's. I think that's what most people have heard, what most people believe, because it came from white coat wearing scientists and university professors. That is not the truth. And what is more true is, and let me just say why it's not the truth. You can have people in their 60s, in their 70s, in their 80s, zero protein deposits in the brain. We can image this now pretty well with neuroimaging. You can have people zero protein deposit in the brain, and they have full-blown Alzheimer's and dementia. And you have the other extreme, people with loads of amyloid plaques and tau tangles, completely normal cognition. So those extremes really tell us this hypothesis, this amyloid, protein aggregates in the brain as a driver of dementia and neurodegeneration is not correct. What we know happens energetically in the brain is that initially in the early stages of Alzheimer's, there's kind of an increase in energy demand in there are specific brain regions that tend to be more affected. In some people, not all people, tend to have those protein deposits. Those regions start to burn more energy. This is early phase, right? And then at this point, probably this is the brain trying to cope, right? It's like something's not working great, but it's working harder, right?
Like with the gray hair.
Yeah, exactly. And then over time, those brain regions become hypometabolic, and then that's when you start to have symptoms.
What does that mean?
That's when people start to have memory issues and
you said hypometabolic.
Hypometabolic, yes. This is hypermetabolic is kind of this energy distraction you were talking about. Like there's more energy being burned here. Normal metabolic is, you use 100 units of energy for the brain and let's say this brain region. 100 units of energy is what this brain region needs to just sustain normal, healthy functions. If there's a problem with the mitochondria, or there's a problem with, the cell communicating with the synapses, right? The cells talk to each other through these things called synapses. If there's a problem, now that part of the brain is going to need to do more work to compensate. And then we know something happens with neurodegeneration and Alzheimer's is inflammation, neuroinflammation. That basically means there's some cells in the brain that are trying to heal the brain. And part of that healing process is kind of a stress response locally. And then that stress response leads to the secretion of little proteins we call cytokines. And then it's basically those cells saying, something's wrong. We need to fix this. So that costs energy. So you have those cells that get activated. They secrete those proteins to say, please help. We need to reestablish homeostasis. We need to reestablish normal, healthy balance. But that process of reestablishing, of healing, costs energy. Just like when you're post-exercise, your muscle invests energy to become stronger. So in that kind of early phase, hyper-metabolism is when you spend more energy, hyper-function, some people have called it. And then eventually, it seems like those brain regions get tired out, and then they become hypometabolic, so they burn less energy. So if you look at the brain of someone with Alzheimer's, there are these regions that burn less energy. And energy is so central to everything, including cognition, right? In order to have an idea and to be conscious of that idea, you need to burn energy. So the brain kind of burning less energy in later stages kind of reflects this lack of function. It's difficult to remember, old memories. It's difficult to make associations. It becomes difficult to plan in the future and to regulate your emotions. And, a lot of people with dementia end up having kind of mood issues. They become really depressed. And
Is this why they call it type 3 diabetes? Because I've just heard that phrase quite a lot recently.
Yeah. And so my hunch is that Alzheimer's and dementia more generally is a disorder of energy. And specifically, it's a disorder of, increased energy resistance. So there's type 3 diabetes comes from the fact that when the brain gets sick, right? And symptoms of dementia start to appear, like loss of memory and mood and depression and that constellation of symptoms. When you look in the brain, it's burning less energy, but it's also harder for glucose to get inside the brain.
It's less efficient.
So there's, yes, a loss of efficiency, but an increased resistance, right? Or a decrease in conductance for energy, for glucose, for example, to get inside the brain, to be processed and be used.
And why might that be?
Because you're pushing too much glucose on the system.
Oh, okay.
If you load up the system all the time with glucose, with sugar in the blood, and glycemia is high, you have diabetes perhaps, this is all the time like pressure, pushing energy onto the system that's like really delicate. And it's not like jacking the voltage on your lamp that eventually, is going to catch fire. We are a slow burning fire, right? Like the inside of our cells, you have the electrons flowing. And when there's sparks flying, it damages the mitochondria. It damages this, damages that. And that increases, that's what aging is. Aging, the most basic mechanism of aging, including brain aging that leads to Alzheimer's, is the accumulation of a little damage, little mutations, little defects, little imperfections. And as the imperfections accumulate, the system becomes less efficient. Insulin resistance basically, and diabetes refers to the fact that muscles, but also the brain has the capacity to say, I can't anymore. Like glucose, too much for me, too much resistance, too much damage that I'm exposed to. So if you're a muscle cell and you want to protect yourself against this excess energy pressure, right, from the glucose, from the electrons, you can become insensitive or resistant to insulin. Mm-hmm. So then you take the receptors that are sitting on top of the surface of the cell, you pull those out, right? So then the cell no longer is sensitive to insulin. So then the body's like, whoa, like glucose is way high. A normal healthy body releases insulin, floods the blood, insulin goes to the surface of your muscles and then says, take in the glucose because there's too much glucose in the blood. We're going to damage the brain. We're going to damage the eyes. We're going to damage the nerves. So muscle, please take in that glucose. But when the muscle is overwhelmed and the mitochondria are starting to be at capacity in terms of how much energy they can resist and flow, then they shut down the valves, right? So the muscle cells become insulin resistant and then glucose intolerant. And that protects the mitochondria in the muscle cells. But then blood glucose starts to increase. So the next step in this cascade is, well, if there's too much energy in circulation, too much sugar, too much fat, what can we do with this? And that's where fat stores, adiposity comes in. So obesity is a protection mechanism against excess energy resistance.
One way to think about this hypothesis that dementia, Alzheimer's, is linked to an overflow of glucose, let's say, is to look at other civilizations or, tribes, the Hadza tribe in Africa, who don't have a lot of glucose. Do they still get Alzheimer's and dementia?
I don't know the literature on this, but it's clear that people who, if we look at what makes you more likely to have Alzheimer's, what makes you less likely to have Alzheimer's, all the things that make you more likely to have Alzheimer's contribute to increasing this energy resistance, right? Too much sugar in the blood, diabetes, physical inactivity, right? If you don't move, energy doesn't flow through your mitochondria. So it just stacks up, accumulates. And the things that protects the brain, protects you against Alzheimer's and dementia, or things that let energy flow. Physical activity, not eating too much, especially not eating too much sugar, and then ketones. There's new data now showing that ketones can enter the brain and be metabolized more easily and can even kind of improve cognition. And the ketogenic diet, which I know you've tried, many people report more energy on the ketogenic diet. It's not because you eat more calories. It's because those electrons that are stuck on ketones instead of being stuck on glucose can flow more easily. And those ketones are made by mitochondria in your liver. This is a really beautiful story of the sociality of mitochondria in the organism. The liver mitochondria is where ketones are made. If you eat fat, right, avocados and oil and meat and butter and those fat molecules and go in the liver, and then the mitochondria in the liver take those fat, transform them into ketones, and then put the ketones into the blood. The kidneys also do a little bit of this. And then the ketones go to the brain, and then they feed the mitochondria in the brain. So you have mitochondria in the liver talking and feeding mitochondria in the brain. And the path for a ketone to go from blood to mitochondria is much shorter in terms of number of enzymes, number of resistors, if you want to think about it energetically, than for glucose. That path is very long. The ketone path is much shorter.
I just want to make sure on that point that I don't misunderstand, because it could have sounded like you're saying that too much energy might cause Alzheimer's, but actually you're not saying, because I think of ketones as energy, and I'm shotting ketones all the time.
Yeah.
I don't want to flood my brain with energy so that malfunctions, gets Alzheimer's.
For some reason it's really hard to overwhelm the brain
with ketones,
with ketones, or overwhelm the body if you eat fat. Like it's very easy to feel like I'm full. I've had a good enough meal. If you bring sugar into the picture and you mix sugar and fat, now things like taste so good and there's like an extra reward, and a lot of people eat for different reasons, not just because they're hungry. Mm-hmm. That's because it's so rewarding to eat something fatty and sugary, especially the sugar part. Then you lose regulation. And that's why I think the GLP-1 drugs are so powerful, because they address the problem where it starts. Like, how much food are you putting into the system?
Yeah. I did look at the stats there on the tribes in Africa, and it says when researchers study indigenous groups such as the Hadza hunter-gatherer tribe in Tanzania, or rural agrarian populations like the Yoruba, they find that Alzheimer's and vascular dementia are exceptionally rare, mm-hmm. which again means that it points to Western diets.
Mm-hmm. Western diet, Western
lifestyles,
behavior. These people move all the time, and they don't eat too much. Most of them don't need to kind of rely on their fat capacitor. They don't have excess energy to just store away. And for some people, there's congenital leanness, right? Like you're born lean, and you can't put on fat. If you eat too much, the high sugar or high fat just accumulates in the blood, and then it gets lodged in ectopic ways. So it gets lodged in the muscle or in the liver or in the brain, and then that causes damage because of this like excess energy pressure, and then the system overheats.
Skinny fat,
yeah.
And that stores it around your livers and stuff.
Exactly.
What's that called, that fat inside you?
Visceral
fat.
Yeah. And the visceral fat is linked to increased inflammation, and it's linked to a bunch of diseases. But this is just a symptom, like the increased fat. And I think the reason why obesity, in general, we say obesity is bad, is because obesity reflects a deeper state, a more important state, which is this increased energy resistance. Like there's too much energy in the system, and the system can't flow it. Like the mitochondria can't keep up. So to protect themselves, they store that away, and then you become obese.
So on this point of food then, fasting, autophagy, all these words that I've heard, if you were giving me advice on everything you know about how to create a body that is very, very efficient in how I deal with the energy that I have, what advice would you give me as it relates to eating?
Develop that awareness of what your body needs. So when I think about how I eat, I don't think about my weight or my body. I think about how am I feeling, and do I need more food, right? Am I like depleted, or am I tired and exhausted because there's too much food on board and my organism is like struggling to keep up with this excess like friction or excess, energy pressure and on my brain, on my mitochondria. So I think about it from the perspective of my mitochondria. What do my mitochondria need? And in general, it's much harder to, deplete the mitochondria, like not eating too much. So if you're thinking about, okay, there's this food there, do I snack, do I not snack? Generally, eating too much, there are clear consequences to this. Like it increases the resistance or the friction in your mitochondria. Not eating enough is typically innocuous for most people. And
because we have stores, don't we, of glycogen, and we have stores of glucose in our body, in our muscles anyway. So if we were running low, then our body can go get some fat, metabolize it.
Exactly, make ketones.
Yeah.
Yeah, most people have enough energy on board, right, in the form of fat, some glycogen in your muscles and your liver, to live at least a month.
I mean, I'm a big fan of survival documentaries. Uh-huh. And one of the most remarkable things you see in survival documentaries, I'm even thinking about some that I've watched, is people can survive for seemingly months without eating anything.
Yeah.
They can't survive for long without water, but they can survive for months without eating anything. Because their body will start to kind of go into its reserves and break down muscle and all these other things.
Yeah. The world record for not eating is over 300 days.
Wow.
Irish man. And he lost, I forget the exact numbers, 250 pounds, 300 pounds.
What does this say about hunger? And also, what does it say about this society we live in where we have, some people have like 5 meals. Some people basically just eat from morning till night, you know?
Yeah. I think a lot of us eat not because we're hungry. I think a lot of us have learned to eat to subserve some other need. And eating is quite rewarding. It taps into the same systems, as gambling and kind of connecting with other human beings. So we know some people eat emotionally, right? And when they're stressed out, they eat more. And so I think hunger is something to be skeptical of, because there are many pathways that I think kind of converge on hunger. Like if you feel sad, you feel like bored, hunger will kind of get you out of boredom because of the salt, especially if you had salty, sugary things around. It's a rewarding thing that will get you out of other uncomfortable sensations. I think most of us overeat. That's a good general assumption to make. You're probably overeating.
I think I probably am.
It's harder to overeat if you restrict your eating window, right? And that works really well for some people. Like eating, for example, a very severe kind of window would be 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., right? So you eat for 4 hours and you kind of put this around dinner time so you can be social with your partner or something like that. That tends to work well for a lot of people who have been in the habit of overeating. And my dad, still thinks to this day, he's 69 now, that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. That's what he learned when he was a kid, and he wants to believe that this is true. I don't think it's true for most people. And especially if you're in your 60s, 70s, right? Like the metabolism changes. And if you're always eating, the body never goes into this state of, I must be efficient, right? And then if you go into that state of, I must be efficient, you accumulate poorly functioning mitochondria. And then there's more friction, in your whole body. There's more inflammation, which is a signal of that energy friction or resistance. And then you don't feel as good, right? You don't feel you have as much energy. So many people who go from eating 3 meals a day, plus or minus snacks, to like intermittent fasting, they just say, I'm going to eat whatever I want, however much I want, but just in those 4 hours or 6 hours. Most of those people have a lot more energy. They experience, right, that they have more energy. It's not because there's more energy in their body. If anything, they're putting fewer calories in the body, but the way energy flows now, it flows more efficiently. And we don't perceive the amount of energy, we perceive the flow energy or the transformation of energy.
And I was just reading there that it says that this idea that breakfast is the most important meal of the day came from an advertising campaign that was designed to sell cereal and bacon. Before the Industrial Revolution, breakfast wasn't a heavily scrutinized meal. People often just ate whatever was left over from the night before, or they ate a quick, heavy meal before going out to do physical farm labor. But as people moved into cities and took sedentary office jobs, those heavy, greasy breakfasts started causing widespread ingestion. Ingestion? Enter Harvey Kellogg's. Yes, that Kellogg's. He ran a famous health sanitarium and believed that a clean, light, grain-based diet would cure ingestion and improve overall health. He co-invented cornflakes, and he and other cereal pioneers pushed the narrative that a healthy, cold cereal breakfast was essential for a productive day. And your dad bought it hook, line, and sinker.
Yep. I mean, a lot of people did.
Everybody did.
And I did until recently, until I started to feel into this. I would have this big bowl of cereals. That's how I grew up as well. And then I would feel this low, low energy. And I think now I understand why, because I was overloading my system with way too much kind of rapidly available sugary energy that I didn't need. And then the body needs to find a way to handle this. Either you get fat, which I can't do, so then it goes kind of to my brain and then makes me feel lousy.
So on this point then, just to close off on this diet question, if I want to feel really, really optimal on a given day, I probably do want a smaller eating window, and I probably want to eat just what I need. And I want to not overeat. Yep. I don't want to undereat, but I don't want to overeat.
If you undereat, you're going to pick it up tomorrow.
I'll pick it up tomorrow anyway, so I'll be fine tomorrow. But the worst thing is overeating today, which is going to impact my performance today.
Correct. And food is one thing that influences where energy goes in the body, how it flows. And just maybe to close the loop on that example, like when you're sick and you're fighting an infection,
Yeah.
I had a beautiful opportunity to understand, not just understand, to experience this one day. It was New Year's Eve, 31st in the evening, and I started to feel like a little scratchy throat. I'm like, oh, I think I'm getting sick. So I go to, the evening dinner. I didn't cough or anything. I don't think I was contagious, but I just could feel, right? Like something was coming up. I felt terrible. I had started to have like full-blown flu symptoms. Went home early at like 9 p.m. And then I went to bed. It was a horrible night. I felt, I was in pain. And then I had like massive fever. I took a warm bath to help my fever kind of, go up so that I could fight the high fever, stimulates your immune cells and weakens the virus. So it's usually a good thing. And then next day I was out and I was so depressed. And I was like, I should write about this. I'm writing a book on energy and energy constraints and like the division, partitioning of energy and the body. I was like, I should write about this. This is so interesting. My immune system is in full-blown defense mode. And it's not like I was like, I could feel my heart. I'm wearing this aura. My heart rate was like 110 at rest instead of being like 60, normally. So there's all of this energy flowing through. It's like, wow, like my metabolic rate objectively is higher. We know this is true from good studies on that. When you're fighting something, you burn more energy. Yet I'm feeling completely drained. Right? So it's not like the amount of energy that's flowing through that I should feel more energetic. My immune system in that moment was draining all my energy, sucking away my energy from my mind, from my brain, perhaps. And I remember thinking it wouldn't be a whole lot of energy if I just pulled my laptop, like prop myself on the bed, and then start to write what I'm experiencing in the moment, right? Like but I couldn't muster the strength. It's like, what the fuck? Like, why would I care? I couldn't care, right? And this is the stuff I care about on a daily basis. But in that state of my energy being disrupted, I couldn't care about this. And then I started to think about work and about, the lab and about, family things. I was like, whoa, my whole life feels so different.
I don't care about anything.
Yeah, I don't care about anything. I'm just trying to fucking survive.
That's so interesting because I can relate so much.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has been through like a difficult, like when you're really sick.
Or when you're really stressed.
Yeah.
Or just anything that's all-consuming like that.
Exactly. That's like Maslow's pyramid, right? The top is squished and you're like, survival. And
you're like, where did I go? Where's yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
So I was still me, right? I was still Martin, but I felt completely different. The quality of my mind, the quality of my intention was like completely different. I was just trying to survive. I didn't care about anything else. So that episode went on for like 2 days or so. Day number 3, I was able to take my computer and like start to feel again the purpose. But it was so interesting that just what it felt like when I was able to write about it and really feel into it. It felt like I was diffuse energy.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.